Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at goracing.ie.
And you're very welcome along to this week's Friday Night Racing. A massive era-defining week in some ways because the Ruby Walsh era is over. We'll get into some more reflection on that now that the dust has settled a bit on it with Johnny a little bit later on. Having a good Punchestown so far?
Yeah, not too bad, Ger. It's been a strange one, I suppose. The first day was literally dampened by the weather. It seemed a bit flat, but then it all took off with the weather improving and Ruby retiring, and great performance by the likes of Shaq and Poursoir yesterday. You know what I mean? Harry winning at 11 years of age, and I think two great days to come. So I think, you know, the champion hurdle is going to be an absolute cracker of a race, a real cracker. But Kevin Prendergast has a classic runner tomorrow. He turns 87 this summer, so it's possible, I was just writing this morning, it's possible that Ruby will be upstaged in terms of the great story of the week, but it was something like, I'd probably miss the races today now, so if I'd missed the day Ruby retired, I would be a little bit pissed off.
Yeah.
You know the way these things can happen.
Yeah.
There were about 20,000 people there, and I think there were a lot of people very regretful that they missed it because it wasn't expected and it just happened like that.
I was going to talk about this a little bit later on, but now, in retrospect, our roadshow and the little bit of spikiness at the start makes a lot more sense. Yeah,
I shook his hand yesterday and kind of, you know, looked at him with a bit of a surly expression in the sense of like you were a bit of a dick to me last week when I was kind of right all along. But he just said he said he was feeling a little bit rough yesterday. I think he'd enjoyed the celebrations on Wednesday night, and they are celebrations. He's getting out in one piece somewhat. Anyway, he looks a bit hobbling. But just to go back to last week, I said that I reckon that either one of Geraghty, Russell and Ruby Walsh was having his last Punchestown, and I went on to say that I'm not sure if any of them actually realises that this will be their last Punchestown. One of them obviously did, Ruby, but I thought he played it very close to his chest. And the way it was delivered, like when Tony McCoy retired, it was kind of a long procession of platitudes because it just went on and on and on, and the Racing Post nearly had something in every day, and Ruby's was just like, yeah, I'm done, I'm finished, that's it, I'm gone. And it was a strange kind of experience to just see this happening as he crossed the line waving at the crowd, and that was it. You've just seen Ruby for the last time. I don't think that's dawned. Even last night I had a dream that one of these strange dreams where I was looking for a quote before a race off Ruby, and he uttered me a quote, but he said it in a way that made it almost hard to decipher what he was saying, and I was like, Ruby, what are you talking about? And he just smiled and walked away. But it was kind of strange when I woke up and I was like, actually no, I'm done with Ruby now. He's never going to ride again. And I do still think he's... I
feel a bit like Jennifer Melfi in The Sopranos now, interpreting your dream.
Yeah, I'm not going to admit I know that reference. I'm not as big a Sopranos fan. Is that the girl that...
She's a psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist with Tony.
Yeah.
I should know the Sopranos.
She interprets his dreams a lot.
Right, yeah. Because I actually think there's a lot to be said for that, but in any event, Ruby was in my dream last night. I do think he was the best, and I don't think it's dawned on people that he's finished, and it hasn't...
He was unknowable, and you haven't yet written the great piece that you need to write about him, Johnny. Get out there and write it today. That's what I'm interpreting.
Yeah.
You feel like you've got to scratch that itch. You need to get something that nobody else has got from Ruby.
Yeah.
To translate this vast, massive thing into something that you can distill for our tiny brains.
Is there any money in writing books anymore?
If you're the person... Yeah, there is, yeah.
There might be, yeah.
Irish people buy books. Irish and Italians buy books at a higher rate than anybody else.
Irish and Italians?
Yeah.
I've always said if I did write a book on somebody in racing, I'd like it to be a journeyman because I find their story more interesting than the champion. But I remember saying it to Jim Bulger one day. I said, Jim, if you're stuck, I know you haven't done your autobiography, I'm available for work. And he replied, you're number 13 on the list. So... Anyway, hopefully maybe 12 of the others have been ruled out since. But in any event, Ruby, Davy and Geraghty, all 40 this year. Soon enough, they'll all be retired. I'm not saying when. Davy looks like he could keep going, certainly for a while. Geraghty's injured at the moment. But we are coming to the end of a golden age.
Yeah. I'd say Geraghty wants to do it in similar fashion. He wants to go out. So no doubt he's going to come back from that.
What a way to do it, though. Do you know, you're after riding a very tricky horse to win a Punchestown Gold Cup.
Against the Gold Cup winner.
Against the Gold Cup winner. Granted, I think you could say the fact that they're both trained by one trainer slightly robs the romance out of the race and, you know, the small trainer. But you could look at it another way and say, there it is, that's Ruby probably using the whip for the last or second last time, and he made it look easy. I thought it was a great way to go out because Ken Boy isn't straightforward. He's quite free going, and remember when Davey was on with Joe the other night, he said, I tracked Ruby, I thought the horse was doing too much, but he has enough ability to get by. But just to decide there and then, and I was thinking of this last night before I started dreaming about Ruby. I was thinking when he was jumping the last, did he come into his head, these are my last few seconds?
Yes. Yes, it did. Of course it did.
Because he still had to ride a finish.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. I want this to be my last because that way I'll have won.
And it's the best. It's not.
I don't know if does he always celebrate as much as he did? I remember thinking, like when he was out of the saddle in a way that I hadn't normally
started waving
there was
at the crowd.
Yeah.
Everyone celebrates at Cheltenham. Ruby be a bit more circumspect, I suppose, but I do wonder at what point in the race was he toggling between the knowledge that this is actually it after 25 years of nothing else. I'm coming to the end, best jockey of all time maybe. And by the way, I just have to win this race also. Yeah. Because this is my job.
He needs to win. He needs to win a race to get free though as well. There's that kind of relief. Okay, I did it.
And I was reading that as well this morning. The relief that he might feel. And Paul Townend tracking him in the race was quite fitting because he now replaces him effectively. And there will be a job in Willie's as well. It's a little bit of a musical chairs. I mean, Paul takes the main job, but there'll have to be something else freed up as well. So there are opportunities. Brian Cooper and Mark Walsh now, I think they're of the age where they have to accept that they're coming to the age where they really have to grasp the mantle because there aren't as many top-class jockeys left maybe as there were.
No, and it was the point that he made that we squashed the generation under us because there was no opportunities for us. I thought that was really interesting.
And I wrote a few pieces about Ruby this week, but that was one point to make. He's quite surly and he's quite gruff, but he's generally right and he's very captivating when he speaks. And I think he doesn't. He's not somebody who overly praises himself, and I like that as well. He is quite humble and he's gruff, but he basically admitted that we screwed over another generation.
Yeah, by our talent and hard work.
Yeah.
Our special guest this week is Lisa O'Neill. Lisa, good afternoon to you. How you doing? Sorry to make you listen to all that preamble there, but we got carried away.
Yeah, you're fine. Hi, nice to see you.
What was your take on the whole... We have to talk Ruby, obviously, because he's such a big story. He's a story that transcends the sport of racing as well. So how much of a surprise was it for you guys, and what's everybody saying in the days afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive surprise. Like, Ruby Walsh is Ruby Walsh. I mean, everybody in, I think the country knows who he is, and he's just been fantastic throughout his whole career. So it's been a privilege to be able to watch him and... to try and even kind of, I suppose, self on him in a way as well. He's everything anyone wants to be.
In terms of the style, that we've been talking a lot about his style this week and just the quality that he had in his hands and in his legs and how little work he would want to convey that he was doing on a horse. That was the point that Davy Russell was making during the week. Davy Russell also made the point that you could try and copy Ruby's style, but more often than not you'd end up on the ground. So when you were in a race with him, how much of an eye you keep it on him and how much of an eye you keep it on everybody else?
I suppose Ruby, I mean, just riding for Willie alone, like you could see that Ruby, he's just so, you just never knew how much he was holding on to as well, and he's just masterful at what he does himself, and you'd always try and I suppose try and do your best and keep an eye on Ruby and make sure you're tracking him, because no doubt he knows the pace better than anyone else, and he knows what way the race is going to pan out better than anyone else.
The other thing is, obviously, you're very closely associated with the Gordon Elliott yard. That's kind of where you ride out every morning. This is a battle between two empires, and one of the empires has lost one of their superstars. It does actually it doesn't even things up that much, but it certainly evens things up a little bit that some of the Elliott horses are now looking around and, look, there's no Ruby there with his internal clock just perfectly arriving at the right moment.
Yeah, I suppose you could look at it that way, but I suppose, Paul Townend is a very deserving person to fill Ruby's boots. He's more than proved. He's more than capable of what he's doing, and it's great to see him take over the reins.
Tell us a little bit about your own career. You've had a pretty good year this year. You're second in the overall amateur rankings, and you're top woman rider in the amateur rankings.
Yeah, that's right. It's been a good year so far. I think I've 27 winners in total, including some of the flat winners. So, no, it's been a fantastic year. So, I'm privileged to ride for some great people and for some good owners too.
Talk to us a little bit about that, will you? Like, do you need to plot your races because you're limited in the number of professional races that you can ride each year?
Every amateur is limited to the amount of rides they can have against professionals each year. So I suppose you take what you get as well. But if you're going to have a busy season and if you're going to be riding plenty of professional races, I suppose you just always want to keep in mind that you can only have the 20 rides. So
how do you decide that? Like, what is that process? Do you sit down with an agent? Do you sit down with a trainer and say, you can use me here, here, and here? How does that work?
Not really. I suppose you take what you get during the season, and all being well, if it amounts to 20 rides, I suppose later in the season you can add it up and see how many you have left and what kind of you might be eligible to ride and what you might be lucky enough to get a ride in. So it's kind of more just take it one step at a time and see how we fare out for the season. Well,
talk us through the two Kerry Nationals then in Listowel. Getting on a horse in the Kerry National that has a chance of winning, do you remember the first time that happened?
I rode Wrath the Titans. He'd quite a lightweight, so Gordon was very good to put me forward to Gigginstown, and he was very good to stand by me and let me ride him. So everything went to plan, and he was quietly fancied. So I was just lucky to get the leg across him on the day. Tell us
about that actual race then, because if everything goes to plan, what was the plan in a race like that? Because it's a big outfield, right?
Yeah, it's a big field, and I think the ground was testing that year as well. So it was kind of more a case of kind of fourth or fifth and just kind of, I suppose, ride a race and see what happens. And I was very lucky. He won well that year.
And then the next year you come back. I suppose, before we get to the next year, at that moment, do you realise that this is a big moment in my career that's...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was a 7 pound claimer that year, so it was massive for me, and it really kind of flung me into the limelight a little bit, I suppose. But you definitely, I mean, the minute you cross that line, I think to be honest, I think Listowel and the Kerry National, it definitely has a different kind of aspect to, like, say, the Munster National or the Midlands National or something like that. Well, it does for me anyway. So
why?
I don't know. I think the whole of Kerry get behind it, and Listowel is such a big festival, and I mean it just there's a good crowd and a good atmosphere, and I don't know. I enjoy it anyway.
I think she definitely enjoyed it. She won it 2 years in a row. But I think Lisa's right about that. I remember meeting her down there for, I can't remember which of the races, but with all due respect, I suppose, to Limerick and Mallow, the Cork National, it wouldn't have the class of the Kerry National for one thing, really. And there isn't as much hype about it. I've actually been involved in a horse that was second in it, and it's great. But the Kerry National, there's a real buzz down there. And I suppose in terms of the challenge of the race, Lisa, it's such a tight track as well that it's not, it wouldn't be, I imagine it's not one of the most straightforward races you can ride in either in terms of handicap chases.
No, it's not. I suppose those big handicaps can be the same. We go a good gallop for the first few fences, and then it's all about settling into a rhythm and making sure your horse is in a rhythm and enjoying it. I suppose I was lucky that it worked out 2 years in a row for me. Did
you have any doubt that Michael O'Leary would put you up for the first one, being with the nature of the race, and must be said, the amount of alternative riders from the pro ranks you could have used?
Yeah, absolutely. I had many winners over fences as well, but Gordon was very good to put his trust in me, and I was very thankful to get the ride in it. Never mind on a horse that was fancied. So for it all to work out was really, it was just fantastic for me and for my career.
And so when you went back the next year then, and there's another opportunity to win, is it just different when you know exactly what it takes to be successful? Like, are you just more confident and you kind of a bit more in control, if that's possible, in a massive race with loads of horses who all weigh half a ton?
I suppose first of all, confidence is a massive thing as well. And when you've confidence in a big race like that, confidence in yourself kind of takes you halfway through the race. But yeah, I think I went there the second year, and I knew Potter's great form. I'd ridden him at home and schooled him, and I knew he was fancied as well, but I just thought last year was my year, and I thought it would have been too good to be true having 2 in a row. So yeah, I'm more of a pessimist than an optimist, which is probably one of my negatives. But
is going professional something that you had thought about? Was it a conversation at any point in your life?
No, it's probably not something I really thought about. Growing up and from the beginning of my career, I always kind of looked up to Nina Carberry and Katie Walsh, and they were always in the weigh room when I go racing, and they were great people to have around you. And Rachel has come on, Rachel Blackmore has come on and just kind of broke the seal now for turning professional, and it's fantastic as well. But no, for me, most of my opportunities came in bumpers and ladies races and things like that, and that's how I first started off with. And no, I kind of always just said I'd stick to what I was doing.
This is the strange thing about Lisa, is without exposing what age she is, she was a bit of a latecomer in that you're your first winner in 20... she's laughing because it's true. She's the first winner in 2010, and then it was after sort of... Like, when you really got going, you were probably in your mid-20s or so anyway, I suppose.
I was indeed. So, yeah, I suppose I did think about maybe turning professional, but no, I didn't think about it for too long, especially being in Gordon's as well. He's been very good to me, and a lot of my opportunities have come in bumpers. So the fact of me, when I lost my claim, I knew I wouldn't be eligible to ride in kind of I wouldn't be able to claim off any of the weights in professional races. So.
And in day to day, what's your life at Gordon's? What does it entail from morning until you leave in the evening? This is when there's no racing on.
Yeah, generally I come in right out in the morning, and I help the girls in the office quite a bit as well. So I could be in there during the afternoons, and then the odd day might go home to my dad. Has a couple of pre-trainers in at home. So yeah, I'm never at a loose end anyway.
So your dad's a trainer and a former jockey as well?
Yeah, he used to train a few horses. He just has a few pre-trainers in at the moment. So there's always something to be done at home.
So this is a lifestyle and something that you obviously you were born into it. Is this something that you'll do for the rest of your life as well? Or what comes next when you kind of stop being an amateur jockey? Yeah,
it's hard to predict. I think my mother keeps asking me that question as well, but I don't like to look too far. I don't like to look too far ahead. I suppose I was brought up in racing, and it's all I kind of know. But I don't know. I just take every step, every day as it comes, and don't like to look too far ahead. So.
Would you think of training?
I don't think I would. It's such a big game now, and I know being in Gordon's, and you see the establishment that he has and the owners he has behind him, and I think it's hard for small trainers when they're up against the likes of Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, and I mean there's plenty of small trainers that are well able to show that and prove that they can they can win with any sort of a horse they get, but no, I don't think I would, to be honest.
You've been involved with Tiger Roll as well at various stages across the time. You actually won at Cheltenham on Tiger Roll in 2017.
Yeah, that's right. I was very lucky to get the leg up on Tiger Roll in the 4-miler in Cheltenham, so that was absolutely fantastic, and it was a day I'll never forget. How much of the race do you remember? I remember quite a bit of it, because I think he was enjoying himself a little bit too much. We'd 4 miles to go, and he was tanking me along for, I'd say, a good 3 of the 4 miles anyway. He's quite an economical kind of jumper as well. He just gets from A to B, and it's probably the wrong thing to say after him winning 2 Grand Nationals now, but he made the odd mistake that day, but no, it was fantastic, and I didn't really think about winning the race till we got over the last, but it was just when I think back, it makes the gives me shivers down my spine.
Just on him, how does he jump? I actually kind of forget now. How does he jump conventional fences? Because we've become accustomed to him being a Grand National and a cross-country horse. I was saying, Lisa, after he won the Grand National, that he was up to a rating that more completely entitled him to run the Gold Cup. But then it was a jockey, I think, said to me he just wouldn't jump those conventional fences well enough. He wouldn't get away with it in a Gold Cup. And I know a Gold Cup's an awful test, but how does he actually jump normal fences? Because being honest, I can't remember.
Yeah, he's just economical. He gets from A to B. That exact day that I rode him in Cheltenham, he was travelling so well for a lot of the race that even if he did make a mistake, it took no momentum out of him. But he's flatbred, and he won a juvenile or a triumph. So yeah, no, he gets from A to B.
Was there any sense when you were winning that race in Cheltenham about how great a horse Tiger Roll was going to end up becoming? Did you have a sense that, this is a bit special?
No, not really. I never really thought he'd develop into what he has. But he's such a big heart. He's not the biggest of horses, but he's really proven his ability, and that's what it takes. Is a horse with a big heart to win 2 nationals. It's just phenomenal.
Have you got any rides left at Punchestown this week?
I have one today, Axiomatic. That's in the bumper today, and one tomorrow, a filly for Gordon called Ard Ewan.
And they got chances? Axiomatic has a chance, right?
Yeah, I think he should have a chance. He should improve from his run in Navan. He's a big galloper. I think there'll be a bit of pace in the race, so fingers crossed he might run well.
Well, listen, congratulations on winning the title this year and defending it. And best of luck for the rest of next year as well. Lisa, you've been great with your time today. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Lisa.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks.
That's Lisa O'Neill from the offices of Gordon Elliott's yard. They're talking to us about the season that she's had.
You mentioned the offices as well. The fact that she goes in and helps out in the office. We're talking about this last night coming back from the races. If Ruby Walsh, the jockey, is no more, so Ruby Walsh is now going to be a bit like Ted, I think, in that he'll be more known from henceforth from what he does in the TV. So what will Ruby's personality be like, and will he change? But we're making the point that that's
2 young lads.
That is a long time ago. Say Ruby's in his early 20s there.
I'd say his late teens, is he?
He might even be. Yeah, He does look old now, because I think it's because of just the lifestyle he's had and the injuries, and he does walk a bit like as if, the leg breaks and all that, which, understandably have taken their toll. But racing is an unbelievable leveler, and we'll say if Ruby were very wealthy, he's not necessarily going to splash his cash like a footballer might. And racing is, you might win the Gold Cup, but the following day you could be riding at Tremor. You just have to ride out the next morning. There's no time. It just keeps going. And I like that Lisa, she might ride a Kerry National winner, but the following day she's just helping the girls out in the office. And racing people are very grounded. I think that's one of the alluring things of it.
We haven't really talked about Listowel, but it has a mythology about it. Charlie Pierce, the famous American sports writer, comes over and loves it.
Yeah,
absolutely thinks it's one of the best things in world sport.
Yeah, it is. It's a unique experience, and Listowel town is obviously synonymous with writers, and it's not an easy place to get accommodation in Listowel, because there's so many people go there. It's not a particularly big town, and the setting of the race course is really interesting. I think they call it the island, because I think a river splits kind of around the track, if this makes sense, and you have to cross a bridge to actually go onto the race course. And I think there's stories of, there used to be lads begging under the bridge, and you'd throw a few bob down to them as you were going in, if you'd won a few bob on the way out or whatever. But it really does capture the local community, and it's the harvest festival. It is like the old days of the farmers would spend the money from the harvest, and the
Sam Maguire.
Yeah, and obviously Kerry expect to be in the All-Ireland around that time as well. And it's a great, it's also quite a classy meeting. You know, the Kerry National's been a very good race in recent years, and if you were to go to a festival, I think there are a selection of people who would say, well, Galway is the best, but there are a lot of people who would say, like, Galway's way too much, Listowel for me any day. And I suppose the older I get, you'd kind of be edging towards that as well, that it's a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, a reminder, Friday Night Racing is brought to you by GoRacing.ie. The Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Charity Fund has grown to €4,189.44 after Robbie Power's tip Delta Work won at Punchestown on Tuesday, and Johnny's pick Chacun pour soi slammed two Cheltenham Festival winners yesterday.
Yeah, an unbelievable forms. I think it's, and my French isn't what it should be. I think it means everyone for himself,
yeah,
something like that. But he is living up to his name. He could be an absolute machine, and I have to give some credit to Joe Chambers, who's Rich Ritchie's racing manager, who's been talking about this horse for a long time. And I was going more nearly on what Joe was saying than the actual bare of detail of his win at Naas, but he's very exciting. And he was 25-1 for the Champion Chase next year before yesterday's race. If Altiore's stepping up and trip to the King George, that might well be open to him. Still 5-1 could be a bet, but he was coming off a maiden win and nearly a 3-year layoff. So to do what he did yesterday in a proper Grade 1 against 4 last time out Grade 1 winners, it's quite extraordinary.
What price did he go off?
I think he went off about 133-1. He was 5-1 the day before. But, you know, the benefit of interviews, Willie had Duke de Geneva, who was shorter in the betting than him, but I think he was talking to Tracy Piggott on RT Racing yesterday, and he very brazenly said, like, there's no comparison in their work between these two, and one of them was like 4-1 at the time, and he basically, there was no surprise in terms of his reputation as to what he did. And Rich Ritchie was very emotional afterwards. He was,
he'd had a horse die the day before.
He had cracked teepee, and apparently Ruby's retirement has hit him quite hard, which you know, I guess Richie came into racing when Ruby and Willie were really at their, well, certainly as an Axis were at their peak, and he got used to Vautour, Faugheen, Annie Power, all these ridiculously talented animals, and it's, you know, nothing lasts forever, and he has to move on to the next step now. But he was very emotional. It was weird because we were interviewing Willie with the dictaphones, and I think Racing TV was interviewing Willie, but on the loudspeaker Richie was talking to the racecourse guy Brendan McArdle, who was the last guy to interview Ruby when the whole thing happened. And we're trying to listen to Willie going on about how good Chacun pour soi was, but in the background you this like very iconic American accent kind of almost turning into tears talking about Ruby Walsh. And there is Rich Ritchie, and I think he took off his shades, or certainly donned his cap, and I think there were a few tears. But there were tears on Wednesday. A lot of people, like, we're all grown men and women or whatever, but, you know, Ruby Walsh has not been there anymore is a strange thing. I think when Paul Carberry retired, I was quite sad about that, because I just, you could have a bad day and Paul Carberry would do something that would just make you feel like life was great again. But there were definitely tears on Wednesday, and Richie kind of reflected that.
Our fund still has the chance to increase tomorrow. 2 horses still to run. Fakir Dudaries at 4:25 for Johnny Murphy, and
that's great because I'm taking him on with my nap.
Are you?
Yeah.
Stratum at 5:35 from Ruby Walsh, and that was a winner each way bet selection.
Back when he was a jockey.
Yeah.
Interesting selection. I think he is running in handicap tomorrow, and Fakir Dudaries, if I should, takes on my nap tomorrow in the 4-year-old hurdle, 4:25. Fakir Dudaries, of course, he went to Cheltenham after being purchased by JP McManus, and they decided because they had the late Sir Eric, they decided that they'd run him in the senior race against the Supreme Novice Hurdle horses, and he acquitted himself extremely well, finishing 4th, and he probably ran to a similar level of form in Aintree. I'm just worried that he'll have too much, he won't have the speed for Fusil Raffles, who's a Nicky Henderson trained horse, who is my nap of the weekend.
Fusil Raffles.
Yeah, not sure what the name has to do with if it's even French, but he's French bred, and he won the Adonis Hurdle, which would be a traditional trial for Cheltenham, at a time when I think everybody thought that Sir Eric was unbeatable, and then there wasn't much made of him because he got injured in the race. If you see the way he jumped the second last, I'm speculating he might have injured himself there. He got a cut, so they laid off him, and now he comes here his trainer having won the Triumph Hurdle and the Aintree equivalent. So he's going for the hat-trick here with Fusel Raffles, who to me looks a very, very promising horse. I think he'll take a lot of beating.
Okay, what do you expect Fusel Raffles to go off? Fusel Raffles.
He's 7-4 at the moment. I think he'll go off around that. It's the market looks fairly accurate.
Remember, you can enjoy the Tote versus SP best price guarantees on all Irish racing this weekend. See thetote.com for more. Is there anything else we should talk about this week at Punchestown? It definitely in recent seasons has benefited from there being a doubt about who was going to be the champion trainer. Obviously this year, it didn't need that because it had the Ruby drama.
Punchestown might be a little bit pissed off with Ruby that he didn't tell them, because it would have brought, I'd say, another 5,000 to 10,000 people there. But they can take that up with him. To be fair, he did forego quite a lot of money by not riding on Thursday, and he would have had one very good winner as well. He was down to ride Chacun Pour Soi, which would have been a great experience. It shouldn't be forgotten that he gave up the ride in Chacun Pour Soi, and he was probably watching it thinking,
could have done more,
that would have been 2 mile novice chaser, top class, would have been a bit of crack. But yeah, obviously today's Ladies' Day, and tomorrow is Families' Day, and I think tomorrow might actually have become Punchestown's most well-attended day, which does make sense because it's a Saturday, I suppose, but it's marketed very well. And tomorrow they also have the Mayor's Champion Hurdle, which... one horse that Ruby would have great regret about this season is obviously Benny Dedieu, who fell at the last as in utterly inexplicable circumstances, reminiscent of Annie Power at Cheltenham. But she should set the record straight. Not that she really does, but she looks like she should easily win the Mayor's Novice or the Mayor's Grade 1 hurdle. That race is at 3:50.
And the champion hurdle today, am I right?
This is a great race.
We were there at 5:30 tonight, so if you're listening to this on the radio, you've missed it and you'll know the result.
Yeah.
But if you're streaming us live, as you should have been, at 3 o'clock this afternoon on all of our social channels and on offtheball.com, then we're good to go to be able to talk about Bouvardere, Apples Jade, Super Sunday, Melon, Wicklow Brave and Petit Mouchoir.
Yeah, I haven't had a bet on this race. Being honest, I wouldn't have enough confidence to back Apple Jade at her price because she disappointed at Punchestown before. She disappointed at Cheltenham. She was beaten at Aintree. I still make her the horse to beat on what she was shown earlier in the season, and I think going right-handed is going to be important for her because she's a strange habit of just jinking a bit to her right before she jumps. She edges right and then she jumps straight. I don't know why that is, but I've made the point all year. I do think at top level on 2 miles, it has to affect you a bit because you are giving away a little bit of ground, and you're talking about fine margins at the top level. But Bouvardere, he was fairly underwhelming at Aintree. I think maybe things went against him. Mellon fell in that race when he went off too hard. At the time of, I'm not even sure who rides him at the moment, being honest with you. Because, and again, he was down to, it's probably Paul Townend, but Ruby was supposed to ride him. And then you have Super Sunday, who picked up the pieces in that mad Aintree race and obviously won this last year. I don't know if you remember last year, but this was the race in which Sam Crow and Mellon fell at the same obstacle. One of the most extraordinary things I've ever seen. But Mellon was running a blinder in that race, and he's 13-2 today. He's probably the value at the prices because, he did finish second at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
And, he's still a very good horse in his day. I thought at Aintree he was doing too much, but that was over 2.5 miles.
Okay, these cards are brilliant because everybody has had these horses talked about all year, and so you know them.
Yeah,
and you've come across them, and some of them you've been involved with at various stages, and it's the end of the year, so everybody's like trying their eye strings out for one last time, and then just collapsing in a heap next week.
Yeah, as I said before, it's a bit like the second day of a wedding. Cheltenham is the wedding. Everyone is prepped and they perform. Some of them perform better than others. And the next day, it's very unpredictable. Some lads are just beaten up and they kind of just they've cried enough and they're not able to produce another display of revelry, but others revel in it. And Apple Jade has said she's at the third day of the wedding because she was at Aintree as well, and it's just hard enough to know she didn't enjoy the wedding. Aintree was a little bit better, but she's hoping the Sunday is going to be great crack and win this. But they're very recognisable names, and the ground is beautiful at Punchestown as well. There's no real excuses, and it's been an excellent week, it has to be said. Really good crowd as well. I should also mention, Ger, the bookmaker turnover. we had the Guardian this week saying that they've returned to profit, kind of more or less by donations, and everyone says newspapers are screwed, and it's one way, it's always going one way. But the
Guardian newspapers returned to profit, yeah.
Yeah, so the Guardian have kind of shown that maybe we can turn it around, and the bookmakers, basically on-course bookmakers, would be in the same category as newspapers, in that the internet has killed them. And the on-course bookmakers of the last couple of days have returned a higher turnover than the year before, and that to me is something that is actually to be welcomed. If we get rid of on-course bookmakers, which may well happen, it's a massive aspect of the day out, which admittedly is becoming anachronistic, but they are the lifeblood. They're there every day. They're generally great crack. They take the good with the bad. They lay bets. I'd really be worried if they didn't survive, and it's encouraging.
Last year was a low for them, though. It had come down, I think, from 6 million to 4 million. It was the same as the tote, or the tote had actually gone ahead of it last year at Punchestown. So if it is going up, it's coming up of a relatively low base, but that is a good sign, because all of these industries need to understand what the bottom is and then start building up off it.
Yeah, well, I did a bit of a tipping piece for the Longford GAA supporters on Wednesday, and any of them listening in will probably be spitting at the radio, because I don't know if I tipped a winner at all, actually. But there were bookmakers within the actual confines of the tent. So there were 3 bookmakers there with a pitch, and you just have to evolve to kind of survive, and that would be unheard of a few years ago, and they would have done good business on the day.
So that was a race preview night for the Longford Supporters Club.
The Longford GAA, it could be the Longford GAA itself, does this every year. There were 1,000 people there, 100 tables of 10 people, huge fundraiser for Longford, and John Bannon there, obviously, who refereed the 1998 All-Ireland final when Galway beat Kildare.
What happened? I can't remember.
Always thank John for giving us that soft free that John Divilly got. Eddie McCormick, was it?
Could have been, yeah.
Yeah, it was 98 when Galway beat Kildare. Anyway, John Bannon was there, and such luminaries as that, and they raised a great deal of money, but they had the bookmakers there, like 3 bookmakers for 1,000 people. So you didn't have to leave the room, and you didn't have to be on your phone. You could just, and it's always nice to win a bet with cash as well, from what I can remember.
Yeah, from what you can remember. Friday Night Racing is brought to you by GoRacing.ie. Axiomatic runs in the final race of the day, which goes to Poston. It's going to get the time for you now.
You know what the word means.
7:45, and it's 16-1. Well, that's axiomatic.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've no follow-up questions, Anyway.
Go on, give us your explanation for axiomatic.
I actually don't know. Axiom is like, what is it? I kind of, when you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I knew what you meant. It's like, oh, that's an axiom. It's like,
it's axiomatic.
Can we get any help on the speakers here?
There is no earphones. He doesn't actually have a live feed there. It's just to his your split personality.
Yeah.
The voices in your head, I think, is what I was looking for there, Johnny. Right, we're off to look up some dictionary stuff. That is another Friday Night Racing.
We have to talk to the Guineas before we go.
Okay, well then let's do that.
Absolutely. So the Guineas are on tomorrow on Sunday. I don't know, the story is Kevin Prendergast, really. He turns 87 in July. I was writing a piece to 42 this morning. When Kevin Prendergast was born, on this Thursday was the anniversary of De Valera's gesture of sadness to the German government and the death of Hitler, which is obviously a very controversial moment in Irish history. But when Kevin Prendergast was born, Hitler hadn't even come to power in Germany. That's how long ago this is. Right. It was during the Great Depression in America, and his father was the first trainer from Ireland to win the Guineas in 1960, Darcy Prendergast. Kevin has Mad Moon running in the Guineas tomorrow at Newmarket, and what a story it would be. He's not my selection in the race, but he's the one I want to win. I like 10 Sovereigns. When we had Dunica on, he spoke about this horse. He's never tried 7 furlongs, let alone a mile, but I think he'll stay, and I think if he stays, he'll win.
So he won everything last year?
He won his 3 starts last year. Dunica, I'd say Dunica could be training next year, the year after, whenever he decides that his weight has gotten the best of him. But Kevin Prendergast was already pension age before Dunica was even born, and they could be training against each other next year, so it's a mad game. But obviously Dunica's riding Magna Grecia in the race, and on Sunday we had Patrick Prendergast on earlier in the year, who trained Skitter Scatter to win his first Grade 1 as Group 1 as a trainer last year. She's now with John Ox because they amalgamated, and she's the leading fancy in the 1,000 Guineas, which looks a very open race. She hasn't had a run this year, which wouldn't be that unusual. I'm going to put up one at a very big price in this. and I think it's kind of that type of race. Star turns for Richard Hannon, See the Stars filly, who'll appreciate the mile. She's about 33-1.
Okay, so an outsider for the fillies race on Sunday, and then on Saturday you expect, where's it gone, 10 Sovereigns to win? I
like 10 Sovereigns, but if you were to cap off like a great weekend of racing, Ruby Walsh, just for a story, Ruby Walsh to retire in one piece, Kevin Prendergast to win the Guineas, and John Ox to win the other Guineas, that'd just be perfect.
Johnny, good stuff. Thanks very much for being with us this week.
Anytime.
That is your Friday Night Racing. We stream it live every Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock across all of our social channels. Offtheball.com is the best place to get it. You can just listen to it there as a radio show if you want to. Or, of course, you can get it live on the radio then that evening in replay at 8 o'clock on News Talk. We'll see you next week. Good luck.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
And they're on. Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at goracing.ie.